Hello and welcome to CGTN. We're at the Chengdu Giant Panda base, and with me is Mr. James Ayala, a panda trainer and animal behavior researcher. Today we're here because the panda cubs born this year are making their debut. So there are all 13 of them?
Yep, we've got 13 cubs and 4 sets of twins in that group.
Right.
Cool.
And here we're seeing 2 cubs.
Yeah, these guys are a little bit older. You can tell they look about maybe 3 months, so I'm guessing they're born around the end of May.
Right. How old are they? We're in the end of May.
Yeah, I'm guessing the end of May.
Now is about
3.5.
Yeah, 3.5 months old.
Yep.
James, you're a panda trainer. You've seen these many times. Are you still emotional when you see them?
Oh yeah, I kind of have a split personality. Part of me does research and part of me does training. So half the time, half of my brain is saying they're engaged in play behavior, and the one on the left is trying to start play, and the other half of my brain is saying it's damn cute, So, so I think of both things at once, and it gives me a unique perspective for research, because it makes me think, like, why are they doing these cute, or why are they doing these things? But they're definitely great animals to work with.
Tell me a little bit about your background. How did your relationship with Panda start?
Oh wow! So I've been working with animals for about 20 years. I started working at the Central Park Zoo, doing training work with sea lions and working with penguins, and then I started training monkeys. And I thought monkeys were the most amazing thing, and I wanted to study them and conserve them. So I started my education doing conservation biology, but I always kept this idea about training animals for doing useful things. So when the opportunity arose to work in Panda Base, it was a perfect fit, because I can do a lot of the training work and then also study their behavior. Right,
and you came here, you said, in 2010.
Yes.
It's been 8 years now. Yes. What kept you here? What about those pandas?
Oh my God. Well, I have to be honest. I don't know how to divide it up. Maybe I would say a good 70% is pandas and about 30% is living in Chengdu. I really like the lifestyle here too. So I think for me it was the perfect place, the perfect time, and the perfect job. So it's been a great situation for me.
Right. Tell us a little bit about your work. How do you train these pandas, and what kind of techniques do you incorporate in your training?
Okay, so the first thing is we use positive reinforcement training. We only reward them. We keep everything positive. We teach them when they do certain behaviors that we want, they're going to be rewarded, right? We start when they're around 1 year old. You can see these guys are not moving around. They're not so mobile yet. They can't actually even eat solid food. So they're just nursing from their mom. They're not interested in any of the treats or rewards we'd give them. So I have to wait a little bit until they're older, and then we start teaching them very, very basic things. To come when they're called, to stay in a certain position, to not bite us, not grab our legs, not attack us. And then we can start progressing to more complex behaviors.
And what is the benefit of using positive reinforcement instead of negative ones or punishment?
Okay. There's a few benefits. First, we do our training mainly for the management of the species, right? So getting them to come over when we call them, it helps us separate them and manage them. That's one aspect. Another aspect is veterinary work, right? So we can train them to let us take their blood. In the past, for example, we'd have to anesthetize the panda to get blood, and then that would just screw up all of their hormone levels because of the stress. By having them volunteer for blood, we get a really good sample, and we can understand what's going on much better for them, right? So the veterinary aspect, we can train them for blood, for doing ultrasound, to look for babies. We can even train them to collect urine and get tons of information, like, without even having to hurt the pandas, right? And then another, I guess the final benefit is for the actual welfare of the pandas. We want to keep them mentally stimulated. We want them to think, we want to challenge them, and training is a great way for them to interact with keeper staff and be rewarded and make it positive the whole time. We never want to use negative reinforcement because it can become stressful for the pandas. We want them to be happy. We don't want them to be scared of our staff or be worried. And then also, too, in worst case scenarios, if we do use something like negative reinforcement, we can encourage the panda to be aggressive or, negative towards us, which is the last thing we'd want for our own safety.
Right.
Yeah.
But just take a second to look at these guys. They're still a bit gray.
Yeah.
Is the color going to darken?
So, we have one line of pandas that the female always has gray cubs.
Right.
And then, around 6 months, they'll go solid black. But most of the cubs usually are just the white and the black.
And all of them are called little gray, right?
Yeah.
So,
it's the whole line of Xiao Gui Guis that we have. Yeah, yeah. Even in the wild, there's some cases where they have brown pandas.
Oh yeah, I've seen photos of that.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. The different colorations.
Right.
Yeah.
So you basically came here today to just introduce yourself and say hi to the...
Yeah, it's a good time. I will go and it looks like I'm playing with them. And again, everything I do has a dual purpose.
Right.
Half of it is playing, but half of it is kind of getting to familiarize myself with them, seeing which pandas are approachable, which like to interact with people, which prefer to stay alone. Panda personalities, that's an area of interest now. Before, we never really wanted to acknowledge that animals had emotions or had personalities, but the more we study their behavior, the more we see how individually different they are. So looking at these cubs now, can we learn something about what kind of panda they're going to grow up into?
Right.
You know that panda reintroduction is a hot topic now. Can we look at these cubs at this age and say, this might be a potential candidate for reintroduction based on its behavior?
Wow.
Are they?
This stage,
maybe
they can barely move.
They can barely move, but for example, if something falls, how alert are they? How alert are they to their surroundings?
Right.
Even at this age, they have to make survival decisions. Say, for example, they smell a predator. Do they freeze?
Right.
Do they cry for their mother? So looking at behavior in that sense, will give us potential ideas about, reintroduction, about just the general personality and behavior of these guys.
Wow, James, I think they're bringing in the cubs. Is that because
it's a little warm today, so we're concerned about the heat exposure for the pandas.
Right.
Yeah, they're very sensitive.
I think the audience members and the visitors are a bit disappointed. They just want to spend as long as...
Everybody loves pandas, right? And everybody wants to see pandas as much as they can. So, one of the challenges that we have are giving the public opportunity to see the animals, but making sure it's safe for the animals.
Right.
And our priority has to be the safety of the pandas.
There are only, a little more than 1,000, 2,000 of them?
So, the estimate for wild is 1,864.
Right.
I would assume that they've increased because that census was done, I believe, 2015.
Right.
But still, it's just a couple of pandas,
But
really.
just before we go, though, since we're not seeing the cubs anymore.
Sure, no problem.
We're going to wrap this interview up, but how are we doing in terms of preserving these pandas? Because you were telling me that pandas are quite different from other species, other types of animals, in that they're very dependent on the environment. Therefore, they're more vulnerable.
So, in 2017, the IUCN took pandas off the endangered species list, and they actually considered them vulnerable. So they lowered the classification. This is a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, it shows that the work China has been doing to conserve the species is great, but the criteria that IUCN uses may not be the best one for pandas. Based on the criteria, the population has increased. The number of population, individual groups of pandas, we believe there's 6. That's also great. And the habitat is expanding as China is doing a lot of conservation work. But since pandas are specialists and only eat bamboo, 99% of the diet is bamboo, they're so tied to that one thing that any change to bamboo can completely reduce the panda population again.
Right.
So it's kind of a mixed message. Like, it's a good thing that they're doing well, but because of their unique nature, they're still very sensitive. So I think we need to continue the conservation work that we're doing and not let up in any sense of the way. Yeah.
And just one last question, James. The Chengdu base has done so much in terms of understanding the panda species and to bring people closer to the species. Do you see a day, though, when places like this doesn't need to exist anymore? That's the ultimate goal, right?
I mean, I think the sense of the necessity for the breeding work, the population is doing really well, but people can't understand the value of wildlife without seeing it. I don't want people going into, the panda reserve and disturbing that habitat. That's not the way to do it. So a place like Chengdu, we're in the center of the city. We're in the center of Sichuan. People have the opportunity to see these animals, learn why they're valuable, why we need to protect them. They're not just cute. They serve a function in the ecosystem, right? We need to learn that. We need to share that with the public so that they can make informed decisions.
And by protecting pandas, you protect other species and the environment and their animal habitats in general.
Exactly. The issue too that we have is a lot of research is short term. They look at 2 years or 3 years, right? But the pandas have been in the ecosystem for 8 million years doing different things. We might not see a change for 100 years, say pandas go extinct. You may not see this change, it may not show up in your research, but the reason that they're still there shows that they're valuable to the ecosystem in itself. Right? So, my overall message would be a place like the Chengdu Panda Base can educate the public, let them know, not just pandas, but all wildlife is worth preserving, and understanding better.
But James, my colleagues in Beijing was just telling me in the earpiece that we got some internet users' comments or questions for you. If I
I think this would be fun.
All right, let's check them out. I guess this internet user called Guardians on Faizi is asking how many pandas are there left in the world. We actually talked about that before.
Yeah. So the estimated population size for the wild pandas is 1,864. In captivity, there's around 500 pandas.
Right.
I'm not so sure because it's just the breeding season, and I'm not sure how many cubs were born this year. But according to our last year, I would guess around 500 are in captivity at least.
And that's very few, right?
That's very few. Yeah. We say 500 is small, but we've actually achieved a self-sustaining population.
Right.
And then that's important for maintaining genetic diversity.
Right.
Obviously, the more pandas we have, the safer they would be from the threat of extinction.
But then it's one thing to kind of keep them behind bars like relics. It's another thing to see them thrive out in the wild.
Yes.
And that's kind of the ultimate goal of this whole breeding program. Right?
Yes, we want to put pandas back in the wild. You said keep them behind bars, right? Part of my job is doing environmental enrichment. You saw the enclosure we have. We try our best to make it the most natural setting for them and to challenge them to move and explore. So
that's also part of your job, right? To get them to move.
Yeah. So we want to move away from this concept of keeping them behind bars. It is captivity, but we are trying the best we can by using things like enrichment, challenging them with puzzle feeders, giving them substrates. We're working actually on giving them snow to play with, doing all these things to simulate a more natural environment.
Half of the world must be jealous of your job. And then we got another one.
Sure.
From James Richards. Is this the giant panda research base in Chengdu?
Yes, this is the Chengdu research base of giant panda breeding.
And this is the biggest one, right?
I am not sure how size works, like by population or by square. We definitely receive the most visitors.
Right. We have quite a few in this region.
Yes.
The Chengdu base and also
there's Wolong, Bifangsha, and there are different centers in Dujiangyan as well.
Yes. Is there anything else? I'm not getting anything else from our Beijing colleagues. So, James, I want to thank you so much for joining our live stream.
No problem. It's great talking to you.
This is always our favorite location to do these live stream.
Sure, we're happy to have you.
Yeah, we're going to see you again, James. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye. Take care.
All right, bye.